Hey friends, I know a lot of people don't care where their tax dollars wind up, but many of us do. I think a lot of us are really tired of constantly getting bilked by our own government out of the money that we work so hard for. Well, so many people were so eager to pile onto the Ukraine bandwagon right away, and I actually put out a video critical of that right away after Russia invaded Ukraine. Now, I'm sympathetic to the fact that innocent people should not be losing their lives. I'm not sympathetic about our country going off into the ditch and we send gazillions of dollars over to another country when we need it to survive over here. We need it to protect ourselves over here. We seem to be a little bit more concerned about people in a different border on the other side of an ocean than we do with the United States citizens being able to feed their own families and take care of our own. Well, it would seem that our generosity may not be appreciated quite as much as we think. It would appear that there is a pretty good and sizable dark website marketplace that's taking place on a regular basis where they're selling a lot of these firearms, the billions of dollars in firearms that we have sent over there and ammunition. It would seem that there's a third party group that's taking a lot of our generosity and selling it to other countries across the world, and they're actually sidestepping all of the bureaucratic stuff that any other nation would have to do in order to sell firearms or ammunition to any other country in the world. They're sidestepping all of that and just going straight to them and selling that. What's happening is you're having this group, actually in Poland of all places, who a lot of these munitions, mostly what I'm looking at here in this particular report, is M4s and ammunition making its way into Poland, and a group which looks like a Russian group in Poland is then turning around using the dark web and using currency as far as cryptocurrency. That's their preferred method. They're using all of that to send weapons everywhere else. Now, quick point. The website that I'm getting a lot of this stuff from just popped up on a different website, and I kind of did some research and found my way to this website called Sputnik. This is a Russian website. So take what I'm telling you with a grain of salt. I'm putting this disclaimer out there ahead of time to let you guys know that Russian media is just as disingenuous, and they lie just as much as American media does. Don't even try to compare the two and act like one is better than the other. They are both equally corrupt. In fact, I think worldwide, all media, mainstream media, is corrupt. So I'm putting that out there so nobody tells me this is a Russian. I know this is a Russian media company, so no one needs to tell me that. I realize where that's coming from. And Russia has a vested interest in making Americans think that our money is going where it's not supposed to go. But let's face it, anybody who's naive enough to think this is not happening is just being a complete fool. So at what level, we don't know. But here are some of the details. You essentially have a seller who is this company called Weapons Ukraine. Again, it appears to be a Russian company. Then you have an intermediary in the middle. The intermediary is going to take the money from the actual buyer, sit on it and hold it, make sure that the transaction actually takes place from the actual seller, and they're going to withhold 2% of that money from the buyer. Once that transaction is confirmed to the actual buyer, then they release the rest of that money, the 98%. That goes back to the seller, and of course, by then, the buyer is receiving their weapons. Now, at this point, this company, Weapons Ukraine, appears to be selling M4 rifles for right at $2,400 a piece. The Pentagon's price on that is $600 to $1,200, so they're actually making a pretty good markup on that with our own weapons that we gave to another country and did not sell to them. Now, in this example that we're looking at, it looks like the online store who is working this deal is actually selling to a group of Houthi fighters in Yemen. Now, I want to explain this real quick. Before you say Yemen is our ally, the government of Yemen is technically our ally. In other words, we have supported a Saudi-backed effort by the government in Yemen to actually fight off the Houthi rebels. Well, this transaction is going to the Houthi rebels. So this transaction of M4s that we're looking at in this particular video is going to arm people that we're fighting against. Doesn't this sound normal? That's the kind of stuff that we always seem to uncover whenever an illegal transaction, some nefarious transaction takes place. It always seems to arm or help and assist our enemies in some kind of way. Now, the interesting thing is they send these barrels from Poland, load them onto an aid ship that's going to Yemen, and they put the rifles and the ammunition and frag grenades in barrels of oil. and they ship the barrels down there. Now, they ship them in lower quantities of about 20 barrels so that it doesn't raise any red flags. They're typically able to get about 10 M4s per barrel, 2,000 rounds of ammunition per barrel, and 20 grenades in each barrel. So far, their website claims they've had upwards to 32 successful transactions. They claim that they've sold upwards to 6,400 M4s and 12,800 grenades. Now, I took their number. If they're looking at the barrels having 10 M4s and 2,000 rounds of ammunition, I took that ratio and looked at the 6,400 M4s that they've already sold. That would come out, get this guys, to 1.2 million rounds so far that have been sold worldwide. Ammunition that we gave to Ukraine, again, sold through Poland to other countries across the world. Think about that, 1.2 million rounds. Wasn't it Winchester and somebody else who sent each 1 million rounds of ammunition to Ukraine? So just one of those shipments is equal to what's already been sent off to other parts of the world. So how bad does Ukraine need this? Think about this. This went to Ukraine first. This was not intercepted somewhere. You would have heard about that. This went to Ukraine. Ukraine sold this to somebody else, and now it's being sold on a black market, the dark web more specifically, to somebody else. You don't think Ukraine got something out of this? Ukraine is receiving this free stuff from us because we're stupid enough to keep sending it. And maybe they don't need the munitions or the rifles and all that quite as much because let's remember, we're sending them tons of money. Maybe they're like, you know what, we'll just sell all this stuff and make additional money, sell their weapons because we have so many weapons already and so much ammunition, and we'll just keep all the U.S.'s money that they're sending us. Now, the thing that also got me is think about this, guys, whenever you're trying to make any kind of a transaction inside the United States, within the continental U.S., whether it's ammunition or buying a firearm. How long does it take? It takes a little while, right? For this 20 barrels to make it from Poland all the way around the ocean, around the Horn of Africa, up around on the east side of Africa to Yemen, 10 days. A 10-day turnaround to go from the sale to delivery of the sale. Incredible. And we can't manage to get that done inside the United States. Guys, again, this was interesting to me. I'm going to leave some links in the description below so you guys can go chase this rabbit yourself. Very interesting. It's one of those things where you got to figure there's at least some truth to this, or at least make the assumption that there is. Again, I have no confidence in any news agency, so anything that I'm pulling information from is suspect anyway. I don't care if it's a U.S. company, which those kind of are more suspect, or a Russian company, or a Ukrainian company. So let's face it, you always have to consider the source. I'm warning you that this source, I have no way of vetting if they're completely legit. Again, I don't think any of them are completely legit. So take this story with a grain of salt, but I felt like it was worth passing on because we knew something like this was happening. We just don't know to what extent. So this is a little bit probably scratching the surface of knowing where our tax dollars are actually winding up at. Again, fighting our enemies in Africa.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.